sometimes we think if something good has to happen, I have to suffer first because I have to earn every good thing that happens to me. Oh my gosh, if we knew how loved we were, like, and how safe we actually are, and how intended for good things. If you look at nature, right, nothing's hurried, nothing's anxious, but everything gets done. There's so much harmony. Like if we allow that in for ourselves, like if there was never this idea that life has to be hard and we have to suffer and struggle and there's a reward in that, and like some aliens came to Earth where they never had that doctrine, they're like, what are all these people, why are these people so miserable? Like, why are they working so much, why are they sweating so much? Like, there is a rhythm to life. Like, we're meant to receive blessings. Like, joy is our natural state. I expected things to happen to me with me doing nothing.
Welcome, Susie, to the Highest Self podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Sahara Rose, lucky me, spending an hour or so with you.
Oh my goddess, I'm so happy to have you here, especially because we're real life friends and I've loved getting to know you. And I honestly think you're like literally enlightened. And I've told you this before, and they'll feel the energy. I'm just like, wow, you really have just this natural Buddha nature to you that you have such a profound way of looking through any obstacles and seeing the best and truly letting it be easy. So I'm so excited to chat with you today. And the first question I want to ask you is, what makes you your highest self?
Oh, wow. What a great question. What a great name for your podcast. No wonder it's so successful. Um, I think that, well, my answer today that comes through for me is I don't lie to myself. That's what makes me my higher self. And I don't believe the lies that come up as thoughts every day. I like to question what comes into my mind, especially if it makes me feel bad. And I really think that's what self-help is, stopping lying to ourselves, essentially.
I love that so much. And you are the person who introduced me to this woman we work with who does Byron Katie the work.
Oh,
And that was
yes.
so helpful for me. And it's like, if you just question the thought, instead of running away from it, instead of like even over analyzing it, it's just question it. And then oftentimes it's just, you actually can live a life where there's no pestering thoughts. And I didn't know that was possible. And through doing this practice, I'm at this place that I'm like, I don't even need to do more sessions with her because any thought that comes up, I just question and it's gone, you know? So it's the freedom on the other side of questioning your thoughts.
And I think that most people don't realize that that's available ever. Like, we go through life and we think stress is assumed, it's everything's difficult, obstacle. And look, obstacles will always be part of life, but obstacles are to be expected constantly. We're meant to suffer. This is just what life is. We never ever think whether or not that's actually real, or if there can be another way. So even just making that statement, saying, hey, I don't have to believe my thinking, I don't have to believe what's causing me stress, this that in it, like, that's it, we could end now, Sahara. This was fun, thanks. But like, really, there is so much power that we have that we give away because we just take on other people's stress, or we see how other people live and we think that this is the only way.
So someone may be listening to this like, yeah, I really want to believe that, but easy for you guys to say. You guys are already successful. You guys have books. Like, you guys have it all figured out. I have money problems. I have family problems. I have relationship problems. Like, I have a lot that's really real for me, and I'm worrying about it. So can you share a little bit about your personal background and how you got to where you are?
Yes, and this was actually really the driver for writing this book, Let It Be Easy, because I grew up living in domestic abuse shelters. So, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, if you are in a family where there's domestic violence, the country that you live in has housing that's shared with other families like yours. If you've been in a shelter, you kind of are familiar with how it all works. It's very different to a regular home. You live with other families, and often you move between shelters based on who can accommodate you, who can't. My family, we grew up on welfare. I went to over, I can't even remember, 25 or 30 schools. My sister keeps count. My father died of addiction when I was 19. And I remember when I was kind of in those shelters with the kind of chaos and the constant moving and so much change and everything really feeling quite scary, going to myself, oh, when I grow up and I have like a job and I have, a husband and I have my own apartment or home that I live in, everything's going to be just really good, right? Like it's just going to be so good. And I'm going to I'm going to be able to take care of my mom and I'm just going to like be happy and cool and easy, right? And then, I worked hard, age 30, I had a great career in tech, earning $500,000 a year, got a great husband, and it still wasn't easy. There was other stress. It was hard back then. It was then hard when I kind of got what I thought everything I needed for my life to be easy. And then I'm like, there has to be something missing here, right? This can't just be life, suffering and stress, other suffering, different stress, just looks a little different now. And this is when I just became obsessed with figuring out like what is it that some people have, what is it that some of the great spiritual leaders or whoever you even look up to or admire, what are they doing, what's their secret? And it just really became obvious to me that ease is a skill like any other skill, and you learn it, you practice it, and then it's almost like you can never go back. You can never go back to who you were before. And that's how I feel. I feel like I've really seen life from two very different points of view. And no matter what happens in my life, I'm going to be okay because I know this. I know that I can allow ease in wherever I am, whatever my obstacles are, and your life will always have challenges, things that come up for you. But when you have almost like this let it be easy wisdom or another way of looking at it, you're just significantly better off. And you allow a whole lot more to flow to you as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think someone could like look at you from the outside and be like, "Oh, Susie, she's must have always had it so easy. Like, look at her. She lives in Miami. She's like British and she's so beautiful and blonde and it just must have been so easy." And another thing I'd love for you to share about is your mother's challenges with mental health and how that helped formulate this ease mindset that you have today.
Oh, yes. If anyone has in their family someone who's very erratic, unpredictable, constantly changing. My mum, she grew up in communist Poland. It was Nazi occupied. She had nothing. There was no bathroom. When she was a child, there was a fire because she was, not being supervised near their small oven, and the fire burnt her face and her arm. She had so much real trauma. We talk about trauma a lot, right? But like the trauma that she experienced, having no parental supervision, really having to fend for herself, having to leave a communist country to go to England. I look at her with so much compassion. And when I used to think that she was wrong, I needed to change her. She needed to be normal. She needed to be stable. When I began to really understand, where what happened to her, and accept her, meet her exactly where she is. It's almost like a new woman came in as my mother, and she didn't change, right? She was exactly as she is. But instead of like fighting with her, arguing with her, saying how, out of her mind she is and da 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 da, you need to be different. When I began to just accept her exactly as she is, and she is, a very unique lady, everything just became easier for me, and we have a good relationship. We have a really good relationship, and that's not true necessarily for everyone in my family. I've got four older sisters, but I can tell you that even in a situation where you want more, like you want more from a parent, you want more stability, you want more safety, you want them to kind of be like other parents, it can actually still be good. Not for everybody, but there is always an opportunity. There's always an option if that's what you want. And making peace with my past, even my father who's passed on, I just feel as if there's so much power that we have, Sahara. Like truly, I feel like my power over my mind is my only thing, like the only thing that's really important, because then everything else becomes simpler. And I'm not in this place of suffering. So I feel as if no matter what, like your situation with your family, your upbringing, there can be another way. And I still think now, even though I like to let life be easy, that I'm open to a whole other new level of ease that I haven't even discovered yet. I feel like this is Earth School, right? It's what we're here to do. And what happened in the past also doesn't even create the present. The present moment is always what we're deciding right now.
So beautifully said. And I remember I was chatting with you about families and how sometimes it can be really triggering to go visit your family and, they might want to watch the news all the time or have these really divisive political conversations. And you
Yes.
shared with me when you visited your mom in England how she
Mhm.
didn't even want to put up the curtains. So you just like sat with her in her home with her curtains down and like rewatched the same show and like ate her, because I think she only eats cake or sweets or something.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit that? And I was like, wow, like it inspired me the level of just acceptance and
Oh.
your ability to just go with the flow. Whereas for me and so many people were like, that's that's not conscious. Don't watch the news. We try to change and we try to fix. And I really admire your ability to just accept people.
Oh, yes. So it was soon after I moved to Miami. I was actually really excited to wear clothes that I can't wear here because it's so hot, as you know. I remember I just packed a coat, packed some pants, and I was like, oh, when I go to England, it's going to be nice and cool. Da, da, da. That was kind of my idea. Then I got to the UK and it was this record breaking heat wave. Like, and if anyone's lived in the UK, you'll know that it's not set up for warm weather. So there's no air conditioning. There is like maybe one fan in 1 out of 10 people's house. So my mum, because she's older and she refuses to be uncomfortable in the heat, we were at home, curtains drawn. She even put paper in the windows where there was gaps, and we stayed home watching television with this tiny little rusty fan like juddering its face between us. I was showing her Duolingo on my phone. We just kept drinking tea, putting the kettle on. It was in her apartment, dark, small, hot. We had a great time. It was not what I expected, but what can you do? What do you have control over in any moment, right? Often not a lot of things, especially in a situation like that, which is unexpected. But isn't it funny how like fun is still always an option? Like
I love that
fun.
because that could trigger so many people of like, I don't want to be at home. And now I'm at home, like doing, I feel like, especially when we become more conscious, we
Mhm.
become so aware of our time and how important our time is
Yeah.
that for so many of us, it's hard to spend our time doing something that we don't want to do. But
Mhm.
I'm assuming you did not want to stay at home in the heat wave with all the curtains down during your trip to England for the week, but you wanted to have a relationship with your mom,
Mm,
and that
yes.
desire was stronger than the desire of it needs to look the way that I want it to look.
Right. And what do you think about it? Isn't fun, joy, happiness the goal of all other goals?
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you think, I want to go wear my pants and stuff and go to a nice lunch and sit outside, da 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 da. Why? Because it'll be fun, right? Why do I want to have that relationship or that boat or like that dress, whatever it is? It's because I feel happy, I'll have fun in it. And it's like, what if you just chose that? Like, what if you just skip the middleman requirement and you just go, okay, there's something that I can't change. I'm also with a person who I can't change or convince or persuade. That's true for a lot of parents, I know too. So what am I going to do? Like resist the moment and reject everything, like everything that's still available? I love in A Course in Miracles, it says, the only thing lacking in any situation is what you're not giving. And that like the only thing lacking is what you're not giving in any situation. I mean, what am I not giving? I'm like, my goal is to see my mom and have fun. So we'll do that. That is what we'll do. It doesn't look like I planned, but I mean, this even happens if you go on vacation and it's raining. Great. Like, what can you do instead? Make out with your partner, play Scrabble, do like read a book. Don't you always say you don't have time to read? Like, it's always an option. We just love to abdicate our power all the time and be in this place of like, things aren't working out, but maybe things are working out just fine. Like, what if it's all just fine?
I feel like so many of us, we want to feel like that so badly, but
Mhm.
we're like, I'm lying to myself if I'm telling myself that I'm having fun. I'm honestly so triggered. Everything that my family or whoever is saying is annoying me. How can we go through this process to actually get to this place where we're enjoying our time, doing something that we didn't think we wanted to do?
Yes. So I would just think, okay, the way that right the mind works is instantly, like within like a millisecond, there's an external situation. We can sometimes call it a stimuli, and then there's an emotion, right? So it's like someone said something mean, immediate response, I feel bad, I feel hurt, I feel rejected, right? So that happens so instantly. We always believe that the stimuli is the reason we feel bad. All right. But if that were true, if the stimuli were the reason that we feel bad, that would mean that every single person in the whole world, in any situation, if they receive that same comment, for example, they would feel the exact same way you do. And that's simply not true. Right. So just say someone said to me, hey, you're stupid. Right. Or they said to you, hey, you're stupid. Or like to 300 people, hey, you're stupid. That would mean nothing to me if that person didn't know me. Right. That would mean nothing. It could ruin someone else's life. Right. It could make them question how stupid they might be without realizing. So if we give the power to the comment or anything external, we're always going to be at the mercy of feeling like any way the wind blows, this very unsteady ground of like, I hope things go right for me. I hope things are exactly what I need so I can feel okay. And when you realize that that's just not true, like the stimuli and your emotion are not connected, it's just what you're making every single thing mean, you become like this dangerously free person where you're like, who cares? Like this happens, that happens, like really, who cares? It's almost like you bring this sense of humor, lightness. And this is kind of, I know this is somehow why people think, oh wow, it must be so easy for you because I laugh a lot, right? And if something happens where someone else would be like, this is terrible, I'd be like, oh, that's a relief. I don't have to do that then. Or, oh, whoops, I broke that. Oh, well, I needed an upgrade of wine glasses anyway, whatever it may be. Just knowing that nothing, and it's tricky, right? Because with our eyes, we see the world, like we see everything on the outside, but everything's happening inside. So I would just say, when something happens, or if someone's struggling in a place of, there's this relationship problem I have, and this is causing me pain, a really great question to ask is, okay, this is what I believe about this situation. Someone should treat me better, for example. You can say, what am I making it mean that they're not treating me better? And then it becomes our personal story, right? It's like, I'm not good enough. I'm not interesting enough. I don't get any respect because I'm not bright enough, whatever it may be. So often I think if something's causing me stress, pain, suffering, what am I making it mean? What external thing is happening, and what is the facts? Like the stimuli, easy, right? That's often just something that's really tangible, but what am I making it mean? And then just saying, like, is this necessarily real? I mean, Socrates said, an unexamined life isn't worth living. And isn't it great to examine then?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not animals. We're not like my dog will bark if there's someone at the door no matter what. I can't say to her, darling, let's think about this. We're on the 74th floor. You can't get up here without security. You're like, my dog can't reason with me, right? But as human beings, we're this evolved species. We're so intelligent. We can question everything. And that is where our power lies, and a whole lot of fun and freedom lie too, which for me is definitely the best part.
Mm. So, as an example of that, like walking through it, let's say, we all have these certain triggers that we don't want to hear. For some people, it's like you're fake, or you're
Oh, yeah.
unprofessional, or you're toxic positive, or whatever the things are.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like we all have our certain things that, like, maybe stupid, that one doesn't land for me because I know I'm not stupid, but
Yeah.
maybe toxic positive is like a big one for me or for someone. I don't believe in that term. I did a whole podcast on it, and we can
Right.
talk about it. But
Right. Yeah.
let's say that is one for you. So it obviously means something. There's a deeper story behind that.
Mm.
So let's say my thing was, I don't like when people call me fake. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say someone's like, oh, I hate Sahara, she's so fake. How can
Mm.
I now question this, look at this, maybe look at, is there some truth in this? Like, how much should we be looking at? Is there some truth? And how much should we be, no, that's their own projection?
Mm. So someone could say Sahara's a caterpillar. Does that make it real? Like Sahara is actually a 4-year-old elephant in India. Like,
I
I
wish.
mean, yeah, I know, me too. But it's like, well, words. Woman says words. I mean, this is how I think about it. Just say someone says something mean about me, and people have called me toxic, positive, fake, all of the above. Yes, yes, yeah. The way that I think about it is, okay, what is happening here if we slow it down between the comment and my negative, like the negative charge in my body, right? So the feeling of stress or pain. I'll just think, okay, woman says words, right? This is a disassociation technique, which I love, right? It's like whenever something happens, we see it in the first person. This is a really interesting thing, right? When something bad happens, we see it in the first person, meaning we experience it again. If we're reliving a painful memory, we'll experience it in our body like it's happening again. But if something good happens, we'll see it in a disassociated state, meaning we'll see ourselves from a distance. So what I love to do is flip it consciously. And if someone says, hey, you're fake, right? So heard it a million times, right? Okay, I'm fake. Like if I disassociate, so it's not me, my story, am I fake because I cheated once in an exam, or I copied some girl's makeup look when I was a teenager to be like her, or I used to say things to please my dad so he would love me. Like those parts of me that weren't real, like maybe there's a connection there that I'm making. But what's actually happening in the moment? There is a woman somewhere. There's a human being, there is a Homo sapien on earth. We get so basic. There is someone on earth who says words, right? And words are man-made too. Language is man-made, to another human. Like That's what's happened. Like if we look at it factually, right? And again, question this if you don't believe it. Like what is actually happening? Woman says words. What's it got to do with me? Right? It's not like someone says that I'm fake and this is touching my wound of what I used to do or what I had to do to survive at a difficult time or whatever. Like that whole story is internal only, right? And frankly, the person who maybe says that someone's fake, they don't even realize what they don't even they'll never know. They'd be thrilled if they knew that you took all of that on and had a story about it. But if you disassociate, you say, okay, what's going on right now? Woman says words. This is what happens. Even if there's I was even speaking to somebody about this about divorce because it was so painful. I'm like, what's actually happening now? Matrimonial paperwork is being dissolved. Person, new paper, dissolution of marriage. This is what's happening. Why do we have to make it failure, life over, God doesn't love me? Like all of these, like all this extra, like we can go, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if all that extra is required here. So when something happens and it feels troubling or it feels like shocking or sad, you just feel that charge. I just go like, really, what is happening in this situation? Because I'm believing that something is dangerous or that I'm under threat. This is what we do, right? This is what the brain does. It's our number one job to perceive threats. And it's doing a really good job, but we can also just help calm it down by introducing the truth.
Mm. I love that of the stories that we're creating around it. And I
Mm.
think too, it's like, some it depends on that person and the feedback that you're getting. Like if it's a
Yes.
stranger on the internet who heard you on a podcast and they're like, I don't know, you're fake. It's like they don't know you. There's no rapport. There's no trust. Like, why would you take advice from a complete stranger who doesn't even know you?
Right.
Now, in different relationships, let's say it's a romantic relationship or a close friendship, let's say someone gives you feedback in a situation
Mm.
like that of like, hey Susie, I feel like you don't really listen to my needs, or I feel like
Mm.
you always put yourself first, or whatever it is. How can we take feedback like without like doing like the wall of like it's all your projection? Like how do we
Yeah.
take that feedback while not creating a story around it? Because I feel like what happens is we either like feel like we're wrong and create
Mm-hmm.
all of the things of like, I'm a bad friend, I'm this, they hate me, our friendship is over, like thinking about ourselves, or we're like, it's your thing, I'm out, here's my boundary, because we don't want to get close. So it's like, how can we be in difficult conversation with ease?
Oh, I love you. Oh my gosh, I just love this so much. It's so helpful. So, loving feedback from someone you care about is so generous. Someone puts themselves on the line when they give you feedback because there's always that risk that you'll shut it down. You won't like it. You won't like them. And I've had feedback in the past, like someone said to me that I speak too fast, right? I speak too fast and it sounds, just doesn't sound good. I don't sound confident, right? And what's some other feedback that I've had? Oh, I've had feedback that I just diminish people's emotions when they want to rant because I'm like, I'll let them rant, but not too long,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so someone said to me, you don't give me the space to, right? And so it's when someone, and our body knows when someone's telling us something out of love, right? Out of versus just like spite, I'm out to get you and I want you to feel bad. I think that when we open our hearts a bit, we know when we're getting some loving feedback. I always think it's really generous of the person who's doing it, whether or not you agree. And it's a vulnerable thing, right? To be like, hey, this is how I feel. This is one piece of information I just feel like could be helpful for you. Someone's putting their neck out, right? It's easier to say nothing. So if someone's giving, some loving feedback or even just giving some advice that you haven't asked for, I already feel like some appreciation there, even if I'm not in agreement. And then I think, wow, like, isn't this like a really delicious invitation to have like to become closer?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's an intimate moment that happens when someone tells you a truth and you listen, and without judging yourself or them, you just kind of hold it and you're like, oh, I didn't think about that, or I need a moment to think about that. Like I find that when we have feedback, or I mean, even this word conflict isn't required here, but when there's like a conversation that happens, right, where there's maybe something that feels uncomfortable for someone to share, that isn't that when our relationships can become good, like can
Mm-hmm.
become even deeper. Like, or if someone says, hey, that thing that you said, like, I don't know if you're making it about me. It, it's so, I just think most people don't do this, right? They'll just go, skip over, it's fine, don't worry, live with like a secret resentment for 50 years. But if someone says something, I feel like it, there's a gift there, and it can be a blessing. A good thing can happen, and maybe it doesn't have to. But if someone's willing to give you something, I feel like that's something that you can appreciate and either go a little deeper or just lovingly move on. Like
Hmm.
it also doesn't have to be so big.
Yeah, and I feel like, when you are at ease within yourself, you don't get
Mm,
defensive with feedback. You're like, I'll look at that and see if there's any truth and feel into it. And
mhm,
maybe I'm like, thanks so much for the feedback. I acknowledge that you put yourself out there. I
mhm.
still disagree with that, but thank you so much. And there's an acknowledgement. Or maybe there's a blind spot that that person was like on edge of, should I tell them, should I not? When we give someone feedback, I really think it's out of love, right? If you don't give a shit
Mhm.
about someone, you're going to be like, oh, I don't like that person. You're not going to explain to them why necessarily. So
Yeah.
I feel like when you're truly at ease with yourself, it doesn't matter what people say about you or to you, because
Mm.
it's not as sharp of a firewall around your ego.
Yes, yes. And I feel like, oh, I have this policy. I'm not perfect with it, but I have this policy that I never defend myself. Like, think about that. Like, just never defending yourself ever. If someone says, you're this, you're that, whatever, you did something bad. What if you just didn't defend yourself? You kind of go, okay. I mean, there is so much strength in that. It doesn't seem obvious, right? Because we're like, no, armor on, you show them, you set them straight. Even my mom did this once. She read a mean comment about me on the Huffington Post, and she was like, I set them straight. And I was like, that's very sweet, you know? No, it's not necessary. That what if there's nothing to defend?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if, I mean, in the book, in Let It Be Easy, I reference, the movie 8 Mile? You've seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Remember at the end, I mean, it's an old movie, so there are no spoilers here, but this is an Oscar winning movie, right? And at the end, when he wins this like rap battle, he just puts it all out there, everything about him that's undesirable. I do live in a trailer with my mom, da 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 da. It's like, put it out there like that. It's almost like of course, in Miracles, it says, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So, think about that. What is there to defend? I mean, defense is, it feels like a battle, right? That we're going in, like it's right, gearing up. What if there's nothing to defend? And if you're defenseless in a way, choosing it like from a place of strength, then nothing can really happen. Like there's no next step. Because if you want to spar with someone, you need to have a partner, right? And if you're not the partner, then I don't know. I guess I'll have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, every single time I've like received a comment from someone online and I responded to it, I've always regretted it.
Yeah.
I'm always it never that person is in a place that they're not even willing to and also when there's no face to face, it's like you can't really even have a conversation. It's just words against words without human connection. And that heart
Mm,
to heart is missing. And I feel like that's really what's happening on social media is like
oh, yeah.
projection upon projection and this need to like defend yourself. And I know so many people like they get a comment and they're like, okay, I need to address this and that. And it almost like creates this sense of entitlement I'm finding
Mm.
online of like, I don't like this thing about you, so now you need to defend it publicly. And it's like, no, you actually don't. Like, you can just read something you disagree with and move on with your life, believe it or
Oh my, it's
not.
okay. This is so freeing. This is one of my mantras. I don't owe anybody anything. Anything. You can come at me, right? You can say, hey, there's one exception to this. If we're talking about social media, the one time I will, and this isn't to defend, is I will clarify. Like, for example, there was this funny thing that happened where this girl she's like a sober coach in Australia. She was like, oh my God, I love bears. She was like traveling. And someone's like, you said you don't drink beer. And she's like, no, I said bears, not beers. Right? Like that, like for clarification, sure. Right. That's one area, but that's not being
She
defensive,
doesn't
right?
drink bears like the animal.
She was like, I love bears. And someone said, I
Oh,
thought,
bears, the
yeah,
animal. Okay,
the
okay, okay,
animal. Yeah, see, with
yeah.
accents, it can be, but someone
Right.
thought she said beers and they're like, oh, so
Right.
you actually aren't. And she's like, no, I said bears, not beers. I mean,
So
that's
funny with the accent beer bear. It sounds so similar. Yeah.
but yeah, who the hell knows? But like that, I mean, that I can understand. It's kind of funny. But if someone says anything, if I need to clarify, fine. Like, oh, there was a mistake or that was a typo, sure. But anything else, you don't, like 20 people can say, defend that. Or, hey, how dare you? You don't have to respond at all. ever. Like you can do whatever you want. You could just be
Mhm.
swimming in the ocean instead, or eating a key lime pie, or like whatever the heck it is. Like it's not you. You're not in that whole thing that's going on. It's people say words, people type words onto an internet platform towards someone, and that person's in the ocean. So
Mm.
it's really
Yeah.
it's really wonderful.
I know sometimes I look at like Joe Rogan, for example, and he's the
Mhm.
example in my mind because he's a podcaster too, but like he'll say anything. Like,
Yeah.
and he'll offend a lot of people and they'll be like coming at him. And he just, I feel, doesn't give a fuck. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, like part of me like wants that level of like, say what you want, like doesn't reply to comments. I think as women, we've been so conditioned to be like, is
Mhm.
everyone okay? Like, did I hurt your feelings? Like, I need to explain myself. And we've been conditioned to be so apologetic. Whereas
Mhm.
the masculine and men haven't been trained to be like that. So there's also like less of this feeling of you owe me an explanation that I see
Mhm.
happens with women between women.
Oh, and it's so, and you see it happen in so many areas where we do get there can just be this like this feeling of owing, and even this very common statement you hear now, like holding people accountable.
Yeah.
I don't hold anyone accountable to anything. It's just trying to control another person.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can be free of that. Worry about yourself. Are you feeling good with yourself? Are you in your conscience, in your energy, are you good? Like that's it. That's your only job, right? Everyone else is their accountability and so forth. Someone else can do that. Like someone else can do that because I don't know, Sahara. It's too big a job for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just mind my own business over here.
Exactly. Especially too, it's like, you know, if someone's putting someone in danger, yes. If
Hmm.
it's like a personal relationship,
Hmm.
yes. But I think what we're really talking about is us not liking the choices of strangers online and
Hmm.
how we really have, like, who are we to think that
Hmm.
our opinion about their decisions matters? And we see this happening. Like, we've had conversations about this
Hmm.
happening to different public figures and how, you
Hmm.
know, I think what happens with, you know, public figures or social media influencers, et cetera, it's like they put themselves out there so much that people feel like I've bought into your story. So now you owe me an explanation about everything. And if I
Mm.
don't like where the story is heading now, I I want the show to change. And it's like we almost like look at it like media, whereas that's like a human being who, you know, I could decide tomorrow, like, hey, this podcast is now going to be about like kittens. And people might
Yeah.
be like, fuck this podcast. I don't want to hear about kittens. And I could be like, well, this is just the direction I'm going. And I'm allowed to do that because I'm a person.
And this is kind of where we really show respect to other people, where because even if we give a loving judgment, any judgment, good or bad, it's still like, a judgment, like this should happen, or this is good, this is bad. And this is, whatever someone decides to do with their life, like the highest gift we can give them is just seeing them in their strength. Right. I feel like, Sahara, I don't know if the kitten idea is really going to be great, but if I even say, I mean, I could say whatever I wanted to you, but I actually wouldn't. I'd be like, and who's to say? Like like what do we know? Like kittens are a big business as far as I understand with YouTube. So like what like so quick to judge, so quick to say, you kind of owe me. You make it about little dinosaurs, little kittens, like what, like whatever. The best thing I can do is just honor and respect your decision, and by letting you be you, and just like letting that be. I mean, look, the first words, like let it be easy, like let it be. So much of it is just that, not getting involved in stuff that has nothing to do with you, right? We love to
Let
stick our
it
nose into everyone else's
be.
business.
Let
Yeah,
it be. Let
let
it
it be.
be. Love
Yeah,
that.
it's wise. It's wise. And if you're sticking your nose in everyone else's like life, their problems, and there may be some intention there to help, but I always, the way that I see it is that how I look in the world is that everyone is strong and capable and whole and resourceful. If I come in to save them, or if I've got to like really step in here, it would just mean that I see myself as stronger and or with better judgment, and that they need my help, and that's just not true.
Yeah, I think coming face to face with our inner savior, and so many of us
Mm.
as kids, we had to save our parents, save our
Mhm.
siblings, save people around us, and we've gotten gratification from saving people. So that's like
Mm.
the persona that we may carry as an adult, to be over responsible for other people's decisions and experiences. And you
Mhm.
know, you got you to worry about, and that's enough. You know, like if you have kids, you got them to worry about too. But it's
Yes.
like random people, like no, like let them let it be. And, everyone has their own internal guidance, and karma is a real thing too. So it's like, we don't
Hmm.
need to be the one who controls. So
Hmm.
I love that. And another thing I love to share, to talk about you with, is I noticed in my own questioning of my thoughts, what I came face to face with was I had this belief of, well, if I don't worry about something, then I'm not going to find the solution for it. So me worrying about it and thinking about it a lot is going to help me find the solution. And you know, I could have evidence of that being true, of
Hmm.
things I've worried about a lot or thought about a lot, that through thinking about it, I made my decision. And in my heart, I know that the mind cannot solve the mind's problems. And
Mm.
me worrying about it, ruminating over it, it may just prolong what my intuition originally guided me towards, or make me even like blow the thing out of proportion. So I would love for you to share about how our mind causes us to believe that we need to overthink about something to find the
Mm.
solution for it.
Yeah, I used to think, similarly to you, that unless I worried about something ahead of time, I wasn't prepared for it. Like, oh, my worrying is like my what I have to like. I pay my dues, so the thing will go well. Like whatever
Yeah.
it is, like this is required here. Like this is required, and it's so interesting how it's the opposite. And it's when we feel stressed, the creative center of the brain shuts down. Like we can, like, what happens when the body's under stress, because it's, again, it feels like a perceived physical threat. It's like tunnel vision, heart beating, like dry mouth. We have these somatic symptoms. They're very real. When stress enters our body, we aren't receiving, like we're not connected to ourselves, the higher self, right? To mention the podcast, like, perfect name here. But we're not ourselves in moments of stress. We shut down, and so we think like we need the stress because it feels like we're doing something, right? Or there's some like momentum with it. And like also the punishment, suffering can sometimes even feel good in a way, because it's like, look at me sweating it out over here about the problem. I'm suffering, and there's something good about that, because look at me, I'm suffering, versus if we look at a problem, whatever it may be, and it's the same, say two people, one person's stressed out about a problem, one person is just handling the problem from a very calm place, a measured place. The person who's calm is going to be so much more receptive to ideas. And then instead of asking, what's wrong? How do I fix it? They'll have questions like, what's missing? What could be added here? Like what could be even like a simpler, how could we simplify this? What could be simple? And we've seen it's easy to observe in others more easily than ourselves often. But the problem that we're perceiving, like the problem itself is never the problem, right? The parking ticket, the can't make dinner, the got a big decision to make, that's never it, right? It's always like, what are we making that problem mean? What's the story here? Like, what is all the nonsense that's going through our mind about it? And if you ever observe, like, say, two people who've gone through similar circumstances, say it's a challenge or obstacle, and one does it with stress and one does it from more of a calm, trusting place. And interestingly, the word confidence comes from the Latin origin word confida, meaning to trust. So coming from a trusting place, and the outcome is meant to be good. It's a friendly universe. You'll just see how far more swiftly they work through the problem, how they don't have any physical kind of fallout. They're not exhausted, or they're not feeling stress in their body. And they get to a solution with, of course, more speed, but also like a curiosity, like I'm in my life. I'm not like observing my life as a stressed, person who has to get through something, but I'm in it. And also this is part of the human experience, right? So whatever it is, like looking at it, being a bit more curious about it. And there are three questions that I love to ask. This is practical. So if ever there's a problem, and I say problem like, with inverted commas, because there's so many perceived problems that are just life. But my favorite three questions are, first of all, especially if it feels very stressful, how serious is this really? Already that's like a real interrupt, right? Because we'll believe that, some email or something, whatever, or someone pulling out of a collaboration, whatever it may be, is like, it can feel like death in the moment. It can feel like this imminent gloom, like something terrible has happened. How serious is this really? Like, breathe, 3 breaths, pause, interrupt. Secondly, what's essential here? So, I mean, this can really be anything. A friend of mine recently said, I was even just feeling so stressed out after a busy day. I have to cook for my family. And she was like, how important is it that I cook tonight? What's essential here? The only essential thing is that the kids have something in their bodies to go to sleep with. They're fed, right? So, what's essential here? Even one time I remember someone asked me to do a presentation and I completely forgot. And they asked me for my slides the day before. And I was like, I've completely forgotten. I don't have slides. So I asked instead, could we just do a Q&A? Could we do a Q&A instead? I've got no slides. I didn't even say I didn't have any slides. I just said, I was thinking, could we make this a Q&A format instead? So there's nothing for me to prepare, essentially. And that's what's essential. Just that I was present, showing up, loving. That was the only essential thing. How serious is it? Cooking for your kids, not being prepared. Not serious, right? What's essential here? The kids have to eat. You have to show up for an hour, right? You have to be present. And then the third question is always my favorite. How can I let it be easy? And because the mind is so obedient to prompts, whenever we ask the right questions, we get good answers. We just ask bad questions. How am I going to survive this? Am I going to be okay? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with other people? Bad questions. How serious is it? What's essential here? Often there's not much that's required, not much more than you need ever. And then, how can I let it be easy? That's the mind gives you solutions when you ask really good questions.
I love that so much. Can you repeat those three questions again so people can write them down?
Yes. How serious is this really? And this requires a pause because you're like, oh, it is serious. I need it. It's
Right.
serious tomorrow. Like 3 breaths, really. How serious is this really? Because just say, all of a sudden you were sick, right? You were just sick today and you couldn't do the thing tomorrow, or you couldn't even order food for your kids. You were so sick. I mean, how serious is it really? Someone else will help. They'll find a replacement. There'll be a pizza, there'll be something, right? How serious is it? It's not life and death, even though that's how the brain perceives. That's how it's always just trying to protect us. It's number one job, survival, right? So how serious is this really? Again, we examine the thinking. Secondly, what's essential here? Not much, right? Like truly, a lot of the time, what's essential is just your presence. And then, how can I let it be easy? And there's always an easier way. I'm obsessed now, Sahara, with allowing even more ease in. I'm like, I've got a nice amount of ease. There has to be a new level, right? So how can I let it be easy? I mean, I even joked that my next book will be, how can it be, let it be easier? There's always more. There's always more for us.
I love that. And I think honestly, a lot of us have a block against that word. We feel like
Yeah.
easy is not worthwhile.
Yeah.
Easy means, if you're taking the easy route, you're not pushing your boundaries and facing your fears and going through the challenges and obstacles and going through the shadows. And, there are benefits of all of those things. So
Mm-hmm.
how can we go through, let's say it is like the level of seriousness is like, I'm choosing what to do with my career,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm choosing whether to continue this relationship with a parent or something like that, that does feel like it's bringing up maybe our deepest fears. How
Mm-hmm.
can we choose ease even through these tremendous obstacles?
Mm. Well, I say the East needs a good lawyer, right? Because no one's defending it, right? It's just like, I mean, Sahara, tell me what in life is meant to be easy, right? Starting a business is hard. Working for someone else is hard. Not having a job is hard. Making money is hard. Not making money is hard. Being married is hard. Being single is hard. Having kids is hard. Oh, not having kids. Oh, that's hard. Like, this is
So true.
it's absurd. It's insanity, absurdity. Like, what is the truth here? Like, how can we catch our breath? Like, where's the break? Like, when does the good part begin? Like, when does the easy bit kick in? Because I'm waiting. Like, what is easy? Right? Like, truly, like, what are we allowed to perceive as easy? And when you let your life be easier, or you ask questions around ease, how can I let this be easy? You give yourself that grace, that love, that permission, which is always available to you. It's like you're going for a walk without a ton of bricks on your back, right? The walk will be the same. You want to get to the same destination, like finding your career or getting hired. But you do it, you just walk as yourself, or you walk with bricks. And when we're believing that everything has to be hard, and like getting a job is hard and the economy is so unstable and you should be so grateful that you even have an interview and da 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 da. Look, those things may be true, right? Those things may be true. But what has to come in? Like there's this old analogy that I love. It's like a boat doesn't sink because of the water around it. It sinks because of the water that gets inside of it. right? So all the perceived stress, what everyone will tell you you're supposed to be scared about and worried about and nervous about, that isn't your stress. Like, and if you have a destination in mind and you have a goal and there's something that you want to achieve and there will be some obstacles, life will always have obstacles, even with let it be easy wisdom. It just means you're going to be a lot better off and a lot more creative, and frankly you'll be faster. You'll get to the end resolution faster because you're actually tapping into higher resources. Like, you're tapping into what's available to you versus shutting it out and figuring it out and white knuckling it and suffering and like even feeling slightly smug that you're suffering because look at poor you know, versus seeing, you know, really there is another way here. And I don't have to act like everybody else. I can tell you, walking through life having a good time is an unusual thing to do, Sahara. Right? Like, walking through life, putting pleasure first, doing what feels good, not killing yourself in so many different ways. Like, I mean, it's funny, but I say, like, I'm not hating my body. I love my body. I have a curvy body. I love it. Right. I love my work. Yes, I have challenges and things to do and there are deadlines. I love that. I've chosen it. Remember? Like, I've chosen it. I'm annoyed at my husband. We shout at each other sometimes, right? In tense moments. Uh, so that's marriage sometimes. Like, I'm also not going to suffer between the moments of the obstacles. So there's just a lot of stuff that you don't have to buy into. You don't have to be like everybody else. And it's almost like when you kind of let this in a little and you play with it, try it on, allow small things to be easier, allow some bigger things to be easier. Say there's even just a gossiping situation where you'd normally jump in and even defend someone else or yourself, and you just didn't. You just sipped your latte, observed it all, let it be. It's People kind of start to want to know your secret. They're like, why are you happy? Oh, you must have a really easy life. Like, oh. And it's like, no, I just, you know, I'm not believing all of those things anymore.
Yeah, ease is a choice. It's not
Oh,
something that people aren't born into a life of ease. Sometimes we think, oh, if only I was born into a rich and easy life, then it's like, no, actually look at some of the richest people in the world. Definitely they are not living with the most ease. Oftentimes
yeah.
they're living with the most amount of stress and conflict and fear. So it truly is
Mhm.
like a choice. I feel like one day we make of like, I'm going to choose the path of ease. And that doesn't mean my ambition is going to stop. That doesn't
No.
mean I'm going to stop working. I think a lot of us are afraid of, if I choose ease, then I'm choosing unworthy path, right? So
Mm,
how can we rewire this relationship we have with ease of like, doing the easy thing doesn't mean we're like taking the basic average road. It's like, for example, you're here in a book launch, right? Like
yeah.
most people would be like, oh my God, Susie, are you okay? Book launches, they're so tough. Like, are you good? Like, they're so crazy. And it's like, you could have taken that on of like, book launches are tough right now. Books are being delayed and like, all of the
Mm,
chaos and stress that comes with it. But you're choosing to step into it and just like laugh at the challenges that are showing up. So how can we make this vow to the path of ease?
Oh, I love that question. So, you know, it's interesting because I've had this question a few times where people have asked me, don't you lose your edge if you become
Yeah.
like too chill? Like, you need to be stressed out to succeed. Like, it's so interesting, isn't it? Right? Like, it's so, I think what the question behind the question is, I mean, yeah, the question behind the question is it like, it's a, I want to phrase this in the best way because it's important. Like, you're allowed, like, you're loved. Like, sometimes we think if something good has to happen, I have to suffer first because I have to earn every good thing that happens to me. Oh my gosh, if we knew how loved we were, like, and how safe we actually are, and how intended for good things. If you look at nature, right, nothing's hurried, nothing's anxious, but everything gets done. There's so much harmony. Like, if we allow that in for ourselves, like, if there was never this idea that life has to be hard and we have to suffer and struggle and there's a reward in that, and like some aliens came to Earth where they never had that doctrine, they're like, what are all these people, why are these people so miserable? Like, why are they working so much, why are they sweating so much? Like, there is a rhythm to life. Like, we're meant to receive blessings. Like, joy is our natural state. I expected things to happen to me with me doing nothing. I expect good things to flow to me. I expect to meet people. Look how easy and lovely it was that we met, Sahara. A friend connected us, Kathy, who we love, had a lovely time. What a blessing. Imagine if I was like, you can't make friends in new cities as an adult. It's too hard. And like, poor me, I've moved around so much in my life. It's like my constant like struggle. I never have friends. Like, I expect to meet people all the time. And it's because of that feeling of safety and also love that I have for myself. So I don't feel like it's necessary. And you can see this in others, right? You can see people who like really live big dreams. I say like even a big musical artist or someone like maybe who creates movies, they're not doing it. Their best work comes from a very joyful. I remember seeing this interview with Taylor Swift years ago. And one of her big songs is about, of course, of all her ex-boyfriends. She's like, me and my best friend were eating Cheerios in bed. And I came up with this line, like, I knew you were trouble when you walked in. Right. And I'm like, see, that's it. It's not look what she's accomplished. It's like, look what she's just allowed. She's allowed those lyrics to come. She's put them in a song. She's not questioning it, saying how hard the music industry is and how impossible it is and how, as a new female artist, you can't break through. It's just like, I trust. Like, this is for me. This is all for me. And we didn't ask to be here on earth at this time. We're here. There's a reason. And I believe in a loving universe. And I believe that good things happen to us for us so we can be do and have what we want when we stop resisting so much.
I so agree with you. And I think, yeah, like to me, that question behind the question is what motivates you, right? I think so many of us are motivated by pain. We're motivated by, I'm suffering so much, so I want to suffer less. So if that suffering is gone, then I won't make any changes. If I'm good with my life, then I'll just become complacent. So I need to find more things that are bothering me, that are so uncomfortable, so I can keep moving forward. And it's really shifting I don't even like the word motivation. I don't resonate with it because I'm not motivated by anything. It's all a natural internal orgasm of expression that is flowing through me. It's like, let's look at an orgasm. When you try to force it, when you try to be like, okay, I need to have the orgasm right now in this way. I don't have much time left. I have a meeting. Like, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Even if you get it to happen, it's not going to be very good. Right.
Yes.
So it's like, we are here to orgasm. Like, creation is an orgasm. We're all orgasms, right? We're all our father's orgasms.
Yes.
To our mother. Like, that's what we are, right?
Yes.
We're walking orgasms. And so if we can just live that way of let me orgasm through my creations and innovations and the lyrics of my song, the next expressions and adapting that mindset, it just shifts. And it's like, I do think sometimes around that, like let's say Taylor Swift, that moment of genius. I knew you were trouble when you walked in. Like that is like her biggest song, right? It orgasmed through her. And around it, sometimes she has to show up for a really early rehearsal that she doesn't want to, and that doesn't really feel easy. And sometimes she has to do these things that don't really feel easy that go around it. But what makes her her and what makes her so successful and expressed in her highest self is not those moments. It's not those moments of struggle. It's the ease, the orgasm that flowed through her.
Yes. And, when going back to your question of like, well, don't you lose your edge or isn't there don't you have to, it's like, yeah, the goal works. I mean, she's going to stadiums, working, doing all of her things. But I would say if we're talking about ease here, wouldn't it be harder for her? And we're just using her as a random example, right? For her to not do that. The ease is actually following through on the truth on what you want. Like when I had a nice paying job in tech and, everything was like pretty sweet there. It felt hard being there because it wasn't right for me. Like it was not the journey of my purpose in this life. And so I'm like, yeah, I have all these benefits and yeah, this expense account and da-da-da-da-da. But that was actually hard. It's harder to not do the thing. Right. So ease is actually, again, you'll have early mornings, like you said, there'll be, requirements. You won't always feel like it and you'll be tired. But when you remember, like, what is it? What is it you're choosing? Like, what is it that you're following? It's not because you've got this desire that's random and it's just kind of weird. It's because there's something there. And following that is always going to be easier than resisting it. And if you feel like, oh, everything has to be earned and stressed and da-da-da, you're just missing also 99% of what happens in life because I mean, even as a small example, so we got a car finally after being in America for 12 years and Miami for 2 years. We got a car. Heath was so excited, my husband, about getting this car. He was watching all the videos, the car, da 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 da. And then you go to get the car, and that's 5 minutes. You get the car, right? That's the euphoria moment. Like, that's the moment that you wait for. And then I'm just like, I'm hungry. What are we going to eat? Where are we going to take this car
Right.
so I can eat? It's like, if you're only living for those peak moments, or the moments, that's less than 1% of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're allowing some joy in, or even just not even necessarily joy, but not additional nonsense in your mind, just allowing something to be neutral. Yep, going to get through it today. That's all I can ask of myself. If I'm tired, that's easy. That's easier than resisting it, causing problems, causing fights, building up in your mind everything you then have to do tomorrow. There's always like there's like a dance that we can play, like with ourselves, with life, where we're not getting in the way and not changing the music all the time. We're just kind of allowing things to be.
And to
And
me, yeah, I love that so much. And it reminds me of living your dharma, living your purpose, right? Like
yes.
for Taylor Swift, her purpose is to be the singer and show up in this massive way. It would have been so much harder for her to swallow that dream and spend the rest of her life wondering what if, which is
Oh,
what most people do. They carry that resistance. They carry that like inner knowing that they're not really living their potential. That's not ease.
mm-mm.
For her, it would be so much harder to be like, I'm not going to show up for rehearsal and I'm not going to perform at the Grammys and I'm not going to do all of this stuff because my sleep is more important. That's not being authentic to her. Whereas for
Mm-hmm.
someone else, they may genuinely be happy being a fisherman. Someone
Yes.
might come up to them and be like, it's like that. I don't know if you've ever heard that story of the
Yeah.
Mexican fisherman.
I
Yeah.
know.
So it's
Yeah.
like that beautiful story of, I'll just briefly sort of share it, like the Mexican fisherman who this American came and was like, why don't you get a bigger boat so you can get more fish? And the Mexican fisherman was like, well, and then what? And he's like, well, then you'll have more money and then you can hire other boats. And then he's like, well, then what? And he's like, then you can have a whole fleet of boats and, you have more money and provide for your family. And he's like, and then what? He's like, then you could buy a vacation home and you could travel and live this big life. And he's like, and then what? He's like, then you can just like go on vacation whenever you want and hang out at the beach. And he's like, but I'm already doing that. And it's like,
Yes.
here we are thinking I need to do all of these things to maybe get to where you already are. So again, it comes back to your authenticity, your truth, your dharma, your purpose. Some people, I think, are forcing themselves into this big vision that's not authentic for them. They may have genuinely been happier in a small home in the countryside, drinking their latte, going to the Sunday grocery with like a whatever the median salary is there, that may be their ideal definition of success. Whereas for other people, it may be to be a Tony Robbins or a Taylor Swift, etc. But that's ease for them. That's truth for them. So it's honoring who you are and letting that expression be easy with all of the choices that it comes with.
Oh, yes. And this is our only job, right? Isn't this our only job? In Hamlet, Shakespeare says, to thine own self be true. Best words ever said. I can tell you, my sister is a stay-at-home mom, 2 boys. She's happier than all of us. She's just like, oh, I love my life. Oh, she's like, I got a new fridge. Like I'm telling you, she's like, oh, I don't know how you do it with all those things that you do. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like, I don't know how you do, like, manage your very rambunctious boys, like always a mess, always wanting attention. This is why it's easy to listen to yourself, right? Well, not when you're listening to everyone else, that's hard. It's like, you should, don't you want that? You need to, for example, my sister always gets these offers to sell MLM products. Nothing wrong with that. I like MLMs, right? But it's like, she's like, I don't want to do that. She's like, I don't want to do that. I want to read my books and be with my boys. Great. Like ease.
Exactly.
But that's her being true for like her vision, like what she wants for her life. I'm doing what I want, you're doing what you want. It's when we're not necessarily doing that because we're believing something else is better, something else is superior, something else maybe is more impressive, and they're all just judgments, right? Nothing is real here. It's just how it feels for you. That's when, again, we just throw up more and more resistance and let stuff be hard versus just naturally following our instincts. Like, that's why we have them. That's why intuition's so loud when we listen.
I wonder, I look back on my own journey and I definitely didn't always choose the path of ease, like a lot of times it was like my relationship with my family, and it was like so hard, and I'm writing this book and it's hard, and so I can't say I've always chosen the path of ease and that's why I'm here.
Mhm.
I can't say
Yeah.
that. However, I made a switch, and I noticed that the thing that was motivating me before is not going to motivate me or inspire me now to where I want to go. So
Mm,
sometimes it's like when you're in the shitty relationship, when
mm,
you're in the dead end job, when you're
mm,
in the place that it's just like, this is so uncomfortable that the only thing that's maybe slightly less uncomfortable is to go through the discomfort of changing. And it's
mhm,
like that is when you do often feel a lot of resistance. You do feel like you're swimming upstream. You may have no
mm,
friends. You may not even know where you're heading. It may feel really overwhelming and really confusing, but that pain of changing is less than the pain of remaining exactly where you are. So
mm,
you make those shifts and you go through the waves. And then I found, at least for myself, that then I got to this place that I'm like, I wrote the book. Like
mm.
I did it. I created it. I did the thing. I have the business. I have, the things that I've been waiting for. But then I was noticing my old self was like, well, fill up your schedule with more. What's next? Where's the next place to go? Like, look at these people. They're writing a book every single year. You should be writing a book every single year. You should be doing a podcast every single day. Like, you should be doing this. You should. And then I had
Ah,
to question, like, is because I was so wanting to change that I was like, I'm going to devote any amount of free time I have to making my dream come true. But
mm,
now my dream is to have space. It's
mm,
not to be the most quote unquote successful
mhm,
author or podcaster or any of that. My goal is to have conversations I love,
mm,
have time to dance. And
mhm,
that may not look like, the climbing the ladder, but I had to be honest with myself of what do I want my life to look like? And I feel like so many people are missing that question and missing that different stages of your life are going to require different levels of energy to get there.
Oh, I mean, this is so gorgeous listening to this. Time to dance, having space, time to have like good, deep conversations. I mean, at the end of it all, right? And we never know when the end is coming, right? And I actually really love thinking about death often because I feel like it's just so keeps us so real. At the end of it all, like, what will it be? Like, what will be the question? It will be, did I have a good time? Like, did I love? Did I use what I was given? And did I was I like white knuckling it, or was I, did I let myself be happy? It takes courage to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to not be happy and to be suffering and to get
Yeah.
attention. But like looking back, hey, I danced, or I had really great, like I had so many deep conversations that felt like heaven to me. I went on spontaneous trips. It just made me feel alive. Like that will be the final. Like, did I do those things, or was I listening to what everyone else said I should be doing, filling up my going to shitty meetings that don't even mean anything. But hey, did 3 meetings today. It's like we can like what you've said to me feels like just a demonstration of loving yourself,
Mm-hmm.
of like, hey,
Yeah.
I know what's right for me, and that's allowed. Ooh, it's allowed. How about that? Like, as if someone could even allow it. Like, of course, like that to me is bliss, complete bliss.
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, I love everything you're saying, I'm all about it, but I haven't gotten to the part yet where I get to think about my bliss, where I even get to think about making space in my schedule. I haven't quote unquote made it yet. Like this was my belief. I was like,
Mm.
people can have it easy once they made it. So how can we, even if we're still in like I would call it the shitty part of our memoirs where everything is still falling apart, how can we in that place
Mhm.
where there are really big and scary decisions that may have to be made, how can we move through those with ease?
Or can I just say that the shitty part never ends? It only ends with your decision. I want to tell you
Ooh.
what Cristiano Ronaldo said, and I don't relate to this guy at all. He's a male footballer. I think it's football, right? But he's,
Yeah.
I mean, from what I understand, he's like the most successful footballer in the world, right? So he said this: at the bottom, no one respects you when you're at the bottom, right? In the middle, no one, you're ignored. Everyone ignores you. When you're at the top, everyone comes after you, and when you're at the top, you're terrified of losing it. So you tell me, where is the good part? Right? Like the shitty part of the memoir. I look back at my shitty parts. I'm like, damn, I did have a good time. Like going out in the snow in New York when I moved from Sydney, not having a proper coat, having ballet flats, silk ballet flats, not snow boots. Like I had a good time, you know. I could have let myself enjoy it more. I certainly had a lot more anxiety and stress then, but that wasn't a shitty part. You know, look, I had no money. I remember I wanted to join Soho House and the under 27 rate was 700 a year. And I'm like, I don't have it. It's too much. I can't join for $700 a year. It's way too expensive. Right. Like that shitty part of my life, which I could call or look back at it is that I'm like, it wasn't. It isn't, you know, and I'm sure Sahara, you've had these thoughts too, or you've realized this. You have a book, you have a big podcast, you reach, you know, revenue goals. There's always more, right? You can feel like, depending on who we're comparing ourselves to now, like compared to, I mean, I don't know, this is ridiculous, but compared to Michelle Obama, right? Or compared to, I don't know, whoever, Lady Gaga, like, surely we're still in the shitty part, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I mean, like, seriously, when is the ease level? It's whenever you decide. So and look, I even love to talk about how often you see people who like, you know, Steve Jobs in his Google garage, Amazon in the like the shitty back room. It's like the pride that people have looking back. It's like, why wait? Like, why not have that now? And just go, like, we're always on our way somewhere. Like, we're always on our way somewhere. Desires never end, right? Life just ends. And so to always think like I want to enjoy the good old days while I'm in them.
Yes, I love it. Just reminded me, recently I went to Costa Rica with Steven. We stayed at this
Oh,
beautiful hotel and it was amazing. And there were tons of crazy bugs, like
yeah.
cockroaches and huge
Oh,
spiders. And, there was like no mosquito net. And he was like freaking out. He was like, dude,
yeah.
how are we going to sleep? There's like ants all over the wall. And I was like, started laughing and sharing with him. I'm like, oh, I used to live in this hut in India that was $2 a night. I lived in there for about 6 months. $2 a night because that's all I had. I couldn't afford the one that was $5 a night. That hut, I was laughing telling him this story. I had a padlock to it, so only I could get inside. It was. I'm kidding you not. It's a hut. And
Mhm.
I noticed one day that my underwear was halfway through the wall. And I was like, how is my underwear halfway through the wall? Like literally no one has a key to this except for me. So one night I would always hear rats on the roof. Like there were lots of rats around
Oh, the brain.
and big ones. But I had no choice. Like that was the money I had and there were just
Yep.
rats. And I
Yeah.
always hear them like it was a tin roof. So I'd always hear them in there. So one night I wake up because I'm hearing them moving a lot. And my mosquito net is like 6 inches from my face with this giant rat that was on the mosquito net, that the net came down and the rat was scrambling and was stuck inches from my face.
Oh
And
my God.
and I was realizing that the rats were coming into the hut in the middle of the night, taking my underwear from my one suitcase of clothes that I had and trying to build a house with it. So they were trying to get it through the wall and it wouldn't go. So I'm like trying to like throw like my pillow like up to like get the rat to like fly away. And I'm like laughing, telling Steven this story. He's like, wait, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, luckily I didn't get rat fever. Like my friend got rat fever because she got bit by one of them, but I had a mosquito net. And I'm like honestly looking at those days with fondness.
Love.
It's like funny to me. And it's like, wow, like I was in that experience and I was still so hopeful. I was like, I'm here, like I'm finally free. I have my own place. I'm in India. Like I'm loving life right now. Yes, I had nothing figured out, zero income, no relationship with my family, no friends, lived by myself. Like it was, looking back, you could definitely say a shitty part of a memoir. But I also could dance whenever I wanted and I would walk around and just talk to someone for an hour and then do yoga over here. Like I actually had this huge level of freedom that I actually don't even have today. So
Wow.
I share this because it's like, you might look back on your college days of having no money, but like the ways that you and your friends would take those $3 to like get the best pizza, or to
Yep.
even days that we would drink and like mix all these alcohols together in one bottle to like steal it from our parents. Like we look back on those days with fondness. So why can't we in this experience be like, this is so funny that this is my life right now. Like, let me just enjoy this chapter.
I completely agree. And when you think about like any past moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I've really come a long way. It's like, are you actually happier? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot to allow stress to be like not so much of a part of my life now. But I don't know. In my happy moments, then and now, it's the same. Right, it's
Yeah.
all just the same. When my girlfriends used to come over when I was divorced in my early 20s, I would get Red Bull and the cheapest Prosecco, which was like $9, and I'd mix them. And we would have one packet of Cool Ranch Doritos. That was my budget. And I'd be like, everyone gets at least one Cool Ranch. Right? And we thought it was so, and I was so happy then, you know. So for me to even like look back, I'd be dishonoring like a whole excellent time, you know. And if something goes wrong now, and you know, just say I have to, there's a real struggle and there's something unexpected that happens, I will bring my perspective. Like that'll be the gift in any situation. Like, and everything too is temporary. Like every life stage, every home, every, you know, all the relationships too are temporary. Not all of them, but you just think this is it. Like this is it, and to honor it, allow it to be, and to like treat it as if it was like that was it. Like to know that it's all special, all of it, the shitty parts, whatever that means. Like it's all just like the tapestry of your life.
I love that so much. So good. You made me laugh and really rethink. And I hope everyone listening to this, it just really is a mindset that we can always step into. And it doesn't, again, it really doesn't mean taking the easy route is taking the less worthy route. It's oftentimes even taking the path of courage, but dropping the story and letting it be from a place of the heart and joy. And I genuinely even think I could have done everything I could have done even faster if I had an ease mindset. It's not that the pain was motivating me. I think if I even adapted this sooner, it would have been even better. But of course, everything happens for a reason. And if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I really have realized I've been addicted to struggling, this right now, this is your initiation into the path of ease.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, really think about it, like, wow, like, and like, what can be available when we like drop the armor, like drop the. I agree. Things do speed up because we're not creating so many problems, and our energy is really goes to creativity, like creativity, different solutions. What else is possible? And it's really unlimited. What's available for us as human beings on Earth, and to be alive right now, like, what a blessing. I mean, having a podcast, this wasn't even available 10 years ago, right? Look at how many, like, there are so many blessings. They just surround us. And I just feel like ease is clarity. It's putting on glasses. It's like actually seeing the truth. And we're worthy of that. Like, we're worthy of that in our very short lifetime.
Well, thank you so much for sharing so much great wisdom with us today. And where can people get your new book? I love it so much. It's like the perfect book you could just flip to in any page. And it's like these little stories and little tidbits that you could just like read it, take that in, and go on with your day with that lesson. So where can people get the new book and connect with you?
Yay! So it's available wherever books are sold. There's also, if you head to letitbeeasybook.com, there are a couple of extra goodies that I'm giving you too. So lovely and easy for you.
Well, thank you again for sharing this day. We're so grateful.
Thank you, Sahara. You know I love you. What a wonderful conversation. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Yes, love it. And it's right now, it's exactly 1 hour and 11 minutes. So
wow,
very divine.
that's it. So much love.